Okay, so before we get into today's video, some really cool wall art promotional stuff dropped for Crisis Core Reunion, and I kind of wanted to just throw in a little update at the beginning of this video because I thought it was really cool and I wanted to talk about it. But in Japan, in Shinjuku Station, I believe it's Shinjuku Station Metro Promenade, which is the entire full naming of that station, there's this really cool lenticular design on one of the walls there that has Zack and Cloud. Now, if you don't know what lenticular designs are or lenticular printings are, it's the type of photo where if you stand from one angle, you see one image, and if you stand at another angle, you see a completely different image. So that's what they're doing with this. So if you stand on the left side, you'll see an image of Zack reaching for the Buster Sword. He's got these beautiful blue skies behind him. Some would say fair weather skies. And if you stand to the right, you will see Cloud reaching for the Buster Sword with these darker, cloudy skies that some would say are filled with strife, but it's really cool. So that's going to be taking place for the first week, this current week right now, and then the week the game comes out, they're going to combine both images, so no matter where you're standing, you'll see both Zack and Cloud. And what's cool is that in the background, they have Y by Ayaka playing to accompany the poster. So if I was somebody who lived in Japan and I walked by and I saw this art and I heard Y playing in the background, I'd probably just fall down to the floor and just start crying my eyes out immediately. I would cause a scene. In the actual graphics themselves, they look beautiful, but some people are now starting to put the tinfoil hats on and they're theorizing like, what does this mean? Why are they both reaching for the Buster Sword at the same time? Is this going to relate to Rebirth in some way? Are they going to fight over the Buster Sword? So I think it's just kind of just symbolization of them both reaching for what is their destiny, and eventually, you know, Zack passes the Buster Sword on to Cloud and Cloud takes over. So I thought this was actually really cool, and I'm going to link in the description below. There's a Twitter user by the name of Zexion, I hope I pronounced that right, Zexion0613, who actually went to Shinjuku Station and took a video of this wall art, and you can hear Ayaka playing in the background and you can see the transition of the two images. It's really beautiful and well done. Unfortunately, we don't get stuff like this here in America. I think the furthest they went for 7 Remake promo was having city buses in Los Angeles, I believe, that just had the entirety of one side of the bus covered, image of Cloud looking up at the Shinra building for Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I just thought that was really cool, and I wanted to throw that in here. It's a really beautiful piece of wall art, and it's just signifying that Crisis Core is right around the corner. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the main video that I wanted to talk about today in regards to the tech of Crisis Core Reunion. Okay, so Square Enix just dropped a brand new Crisis Core Reunion FAQ on us this weekend, and the cool thing about this FAQ is that it's actually kind of different. It's not talking about story or gameplay or the development process as a whole. It's focusing more on the technical aspects of what it took to bring Crisis Core from the PSP to current gen consoles. And it's got some really fascinating little tidbits that actually kind of made me perk up a little bit and go, wow, they did that. So this is actually coming to us from Nintendo Everything. So starting off with the first thing is that Square actually took the time to optimize the frame rates and the resolutions for Crisis Core on each individual console, meaning they took the time to actually test the game out and optimize it for the Switch, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and what have you, which is really reassuring that they actually took their time to make sure that this came out right. I think a lot of companies would just make the game, maybe kind of optimize it, and then release it on all systems, and then eventually you run into issues with either, you know, resolution, frame drops, and whatnot. But the fact that they took their time to actually fine-tune this stuff is really reassuring. Secondly, they point out that the UI and effects were all redone from scratch from the original PSP version, and that includes new lighting, effects, and engine tweaks, and they actually looked to other Final Fantasy games while doing this, which I'm pretty sure FF7 Remake was high on that list when it came to inspiration for redesigning the UI, because the UI in Reunion is basically the same UI that we got in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm not complaining. It makes the process way more streamlined, but it was also a really damn good UI they designed for 7 Remake. So to see it return with Reunion is really nice. Now this right here is really interesting. The original Crisis Core was built and developed on C++, and when doing Reunion, they ported it to Unreal Engine 4. And the reason they chose Unreal Engine 4 is because it allowed them to port C++ developed games into that engine with ease. So getting that source code back into Unreal Engine 4 was a lot easier for them. Now this right here is really interesting. They talk about what their favorite features, parts, and elements in regards to the game's graphics and tech are, and they go on to say that this new Reunion version is pretty much running on the original game's programming, meaning the PSP version is the bones, the foundation for Reunion, and even though assets like the graphics and lighting have all been tweaked, it's still the OG Crisis Core underneath. They do go on to say that even the bones of the characters are from the PSP version. Now they do add some bones here and there for extra new animations on the characters, or where there's fine detail on the clothing that need to be updated, but other than that, it's still running on the original PSP version, which is really cool. So character body structures, faces, and hair are all the same as the original PSP version. So the original still lives on in some form. In regards to the sound, they do say that they use surround sound, and interestingly enough, they say that they are focusing on players who have high-end audio setups. So I'm pretty sure most of us out there at least have a sound bar. I don't know how many people are out there using their standard TV speakers, which, as great as TVs are nowadays, the speakers are trash. A lot of speakers just sound horribly tinny, muted. They sound like you're listening through like a tunnel. So I'm pretty sure most of us are using sound bars, so it's going to be really interesting to hear Crisis Core, you know, with that brand new soundtrack and sound effects coming through a sound bar and not a pair of earbuds like I did back in the day when I played the game on my PSP. It's going to be cool to hear all of these new remastered sound effects. They also go on to talk more about the VO and how obviously everything is voiced over now. They say that Zack has the largest amount of lines, and surprisingly, Kunsel also has a large number too. So in the original, Kunsel did a lot of the emails, we had a lot of conversations with Kunsel, but those were all text-based. So the fact that now Kunsel has to talk is actually not surprising, that he does have a pretty large amount of lines as well. They do talk about how they redid the cinematics by using AI upscaling conversion tools, but how they also went in and were able to replace certain graphics, like the Buster Sword, for example. The Crisis Core Buster Sword for some reason had that really weird redesign with the gold trim, which I was never a big fan of that. I thought it looked kind of weird and it just clashed with the original design of the Buster Sword. I always preferred the original one. So they were able to go in and trace over certain graphics to update them. But what's really cool is they didn't want the new graphics to look like modern graphics. They wanted them to look like they had always been there. So they deliberately avoided using modern or realistic textures. So everything is going to blend in nice, and it's going to look like, hey, that looks a little bit different, but maybe my brain is just remembering it wrong. So it's really cool that when they were developing Reunion, they actually considered every single aspect of the game, not just the game's graphics, but how the player experience was going to be affected by the things that they changed. So the fact that they took their time, you know, even though it was a constrained time schedule, the fact that they took their time to really consider all of these little aspects is really nice. And again, we're about a week or so out from Reunion actually releasing, and I'm really excited to get my hands on it and really experience all of these new cutscenes and the gameplay aspects. I know a lot of streamers out there actually got their hands on the game early. Unfortunately, I did not, but I will be playing it with the rest of you guys, just like all the normies out there when the game drops next week. So I am Curious Corduroy. That is the video. Please leave any of your thoughts in the comments down below. What did you guys think about this article? I know it's more about the technical aspects of Crisis Core, but it is really cool to kind of learn about this stuff every once in a while to really see what goes into the development process, other than just like graphics and lighting, but learning about the actual foundation and the bones of a game. I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.